Okay. I'm going to talk about that thing everybody else is talking about too. Can't not. If you're confused about what the deal is, what the story is, what the backstory, the history is, the situation with Jeffrey Epstein, a good place to start looking is the work of a guy named Mike Cernovich. Cernovich. He's an attorney. He worked with the Miami Herald to get the sweetheart deal that the government gave Epstein in the 90s or 2000s, whenever it was that he was first brought up on charges. That basically he didn't really have to give anything up, and they gave him a plea deal anyway. House arrest and no supervision and stuff like that. The reason that's important to get into is to know who the prosecuting attorney on the case on behalf of the state of Florida was that authorized this sweetheart deal. That Florida prosecutor's name was Pam Bondi. I knew that when they said, oh, she's going to be the new attorney general because Congress just, shit their pants over Matt Gaetz. I honestly would rather have Matt Gaetz. I think he would have been, as his brand was once called a firebrand, he would be a good firebrand attorney general, but no. Oh, so what we're looking at right now, I'm not going to get into the details and the specifics. I'm not going to recap it because all you have to do is type in like Epstein and go on any search, and you're going to find a million recaps, some with some information discrepancies. So we recently got the 11-hour jail footage. I have not personally watched all 11 hours of it. I'm not going to. I've seen some good breakdowns. Jesus Enrique Rosas, the body language guy, did a great breakdown. There were people in the comment section on his videos saying how these people were coming and going from the primary entrance to the facility unit, the door number 46 in the video, that were wearing hoodies, carrying jackets around their waist, and that those are supposed to be contraband in the jail system. Hoodies are not allowed, specifically there. Secondly, we're told that nobody came or went, and we see a number of people leaving that we never saw them come. Where'd they come from? Is there another door? So it just seems to me like there is kind of a, limited camera angle obfuscation thing going on there. They released this and said that there's, well, it's okay. Let me take a step back without rehashing the specific ways that people like Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi have referred to the evidence, the files that the FBI was keeping on the matter, or anything else like that. They use a general umbrella term, the files, or Epstein files. And people, curious parties, concerned parties, journalists, etc., will ask specific questions about the little black book or the so-called client list, right? Which he didn't keep a client list. This is a given, right? When you try and bust the mafia, the reason it's so hard to bust the mafia is they don't keep a ledger of all the crimes they've committed, because that would be an even bigger crime. It's just self-defense, not against, like legal defense, I guess, 101. So he had a contact book. He had a lot of powerful people's names and phone numbers. And it's possible that half of those numbers were given to him that he never actually called them. but that he could, pull out his book and see, like, look whose phone numbers I got. Trust me, I'm cool. I'm legit. Let's go to my island. Who knows? It could have been any of that. But they've changed their story. They've moved the goalposts from the obvious fact that it should be possible to, based on witness testimony, court documents, and the evidence in hand, assemble somewhat of a dossier of people he was almost certainly doing that type of business with. People whose alibis don't match, people whose accounts don't add up. Certainly for the top investigative and law enforcement agency in the country, which happens to be the most powerful country in the world, you would think that would be something they could accomplish. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. It's kind of like with Jim Comey saying no reasonable person would prosecute Hillary Clinton. It's because a reasonable person would have a gun put to their head and be told, either you drop this or we hurt your family, and then you. So a reasonable person would be like, oh, fuck that. That's what he meant when he said that. Guarantee it. Not that there's not evidence, not that there weren't crimes clearly committed, but that a reasonable person would prefer not to be suicided and have it made look like an accident. Now, I'm kind of getting a little psyop fatigue with everything going on. There's been places where things have been good, places where you have leaps of faith and moments of free fall where it's like your stomach drops and it's like, oh God, are they going to screw something up? And thus far, they've been pretty good about it. And by they, I mean like the Trump administration. There's a lot of stuff that they're doing in the world that is going well. But here's the problem. It's more than just Epstein. And Trump's response at the press briefing the other day, are you still talking about that? I can't believe you're still talking about that. Yes, we're still talking about the elites, the people who are either still alive or still in control of something in the world, using people like that dude for services. And meanwhile, that dude and the people who are actually financially backing him and keeping him where he's at, intelligence agencies of a number of countries, using him as an asset, either knowingly or not, to gather compromat, propaganda, or blackmail, I should say, compromat, blackmail against people. It's bigger than just the guy. It's bigger than just whether or not he killed himself. What it is it's clear that justice will never be served. That the victims of his trafficking will never see that justice served. Virginia Roberts is already gone. They claim that she took her own life. This is about 2 weeks after she was hospitalized, having been hit by a bus in the middle of the Australian outback and left for dead. But they're like, oh, no, she just took her own. It's under the rug, leave it alone. Like with all the other instances, right? But it stacks up, it adds up. And after a while, it's like, okay, you can't stack bullshit that high without people noticing. And people have noticed. So they don't want you to talk about it. Sorry, man, we're going to keep talking about it. We are going to keep talking about it because if you're not actively trying to stop it, you might as well be participating. And if you are participating in the cover-up, you are complicit in the crimes being covered up. That is how the law works. But there's something else that is above the law, and that is the Constitution. That is the supreme law of the land. The Constitution bases its authority on the Declaration of Independence. And in the Declaration of Independence, one of the founding principles of the United States of America is that tyranny is unacceptable. And the unequal application of law and order of justice is one of the tipping points. The other being the consent of the governed is required. Okay. So what this means is tyranny equates to top-down government telling everyone we're going to tighten the laws up and we are a law and order and we have to this, and this, right? And we're going to go after the illegal immigrants and we're going to go after people's taxes and we're going to go after people speeding on the highway, not wearing a seatbelt. We're going to go after all these smaller crimes of people that 80, 90% of the time cannot afford legal defense to get out from under something bogus. The process is the punishment, as they say. Meanwhile, you have top tier elites getting away with literal rape and murder, including with kids. And ain't nobody doing a goddamn thing about it. That is the definition of an unequal application of law and order or justice. In the absence of equal application of law, order, and justice, the consent of the governed must be revoked. What that means is that the people who are not the ultra elites, who are being enforced upon with the law, even when the law is not being enforced upon others, it is their duty, their civic duty to resist, to become ungovernable, or do whatever it is that's going to have to happen for real justice to be served. Real justice in a legal sense is never going to be served. Understand that. So they are using things like lies of omission, gaslighting. Oh, no, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. We got it on tape. The internet is forever. Yes, you did. So we have all these people that campaigned on these day one promises. On day one, I will do this. On day one, I will do this. Give it that first 100 days. Just wait and see. And what I said repeatedly, you go back to my other videos, you find the videos all the way back through anywhere from November all the way leading up through probably February or March. Me periodically expressing my concern using the Futurama metaphor of the 80s Wall Street guy with bonitis, where he is so busy reliving his glory days of being a successful 80s Wall Street guy that he completely forgets to cure his own bonitis and subsequently dies. And so I've been saying, we better not be so busy being successful that we can't forget to cure bonitis. Right now, at this very moment, it appears that the bonitis is starting to kick in and they forgot to do shit about it. And it's going to be like the guy in the cartoon where he finally croaks and his last words are, my only regret in life is that I have bonitis. Pam Bondi, as Attorney General, represents bonitis, not being cured. Trump telling people to move along and get over it is bonitis, not being cured. We know that they are paying attention to some of the new media and punditry. We know that Trump has always been kind of a Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson watching kind of guy. Tucker's off at his cabin in the woods, and he's starting to talk about some pretty serious shit. I'm not 100% sure whether Trump is really paying attention to it or not. But what I do know is that the day after the release of the video that proved nothing, confirmed or denied nothing, that they subsequently said, oh yeah, also we're starting to criminal prosecutions against, we're going to investigate, not charge, investigate, right? There's different words mean different things. And in these contexts, the words meanings are important. Criminal investigations, right? That's like when people would say, oh, well, there's an indictment. An indictment just means that a grand jury has shown there might be probable cause to investigate a person more directly and begin assessing charges that could be filed. Just because a person is charged does not mean they are convicted. And just because a person is convicted does not necessarily mean that they will serve an adequate sentence. Look at Epstein, sweetheart deal, ankle monitor, house arrest at a palatial mansion estate. I'm really glad to see that they are continuing to push it in the media, that they're not letting it go. And eventually they're going to have to publicly embarrass Donald Trump. Expect a reaction. I cannot get behind the idea that there is any kind of real investigation going on, considering up till this point, there have been no arrests of any of these high profile people. There have been no charges. There have barely been any firings. It's a whole bunch of, yeah, when I get in there, I'm going to do the thing. And as soon as they get in there, they're like, So let me explain a little bit. Whatever file Dan Bongino and Kash Patel have looked at is the official FBI narrative file. There are almost certainly things that should have been included in an honest and open and transparent file that are not in there. And maybe they even know about the references to those things, but they're not including them in the statement of I've seen the file. Now, it's kind of like that Ron Swanson meme about, do you have a permit? And he pulls out the piece of paper and it says, I can do what I want, with his own signature. The Epstein file is basically a note that just says, yeah, he killed himself, leave it alone. Well, I've looked at everything in the file and it's real clear. Well, yeah, the file says he killed himself, but the file may not contain all the information. And that's the thing. What we, the individual population of people, have to get with here is that in every area of our civilization, in every area, there is much more witch doctory and guesswork, far less of a science than you would think. Yes, there is logic, there is chain of evidence. You can also watch courts completely ignore precedent. You can watch all kinds of things like this. So whatever file, it's like that binder that they handed everyone that was like, oh, wow, this is the same shit you gave us last year, only with more redactions. That was the file that they were looking at. And the file that they were looking at contains no indication whatsoever, because either it's redacted or it's been removed, omitted. But they're not telling us that. They're not saying it looks like the stuff's been removed. They're not saying it's very likely that the previous administration's law enforcement, investigative, Federal Bureau, and Department of Justice intentionally deleted most of the stuff or hid it somewhere else. But they're not saying that. I'm not going to urge anything. I'm not going to suggest anything. But I think, given the clear understanding that something has got to break at some point, we have to now rely on the media, for what it's worth, to hold these people's feet to the fire in public eye. But it may come a point where these individuals who are clearly participating in the cover-up of heinous crimes of a sexual nature against children perpetrated by ultra-rich elites who are still walking about free. Those people, the elites and the people covering them up, pretending to be courageous fighters, but it's all talk. And once they get into office, they just turn face. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Ain't nothing to see here. It's possible we may just have to make them completely unwelcome in all 50 states. That's what it may very well come to. You are not welcome. Because if you're going to participate in the cover-up of sex crimes against children, you are as good as guilty of those same crimes yourself. That's really all I got. If the law is not evenly applied, justice is not fair to all. And I don't mean getting extra clamped down hard on the little guy. I mean the big guys that are being let walk around free must be stopped. And until that happens, the civilian population, the governed, are under no obligation to comply. That is founding document, supreme law of the land, which supersedes even federal laws. That is what is going on right now. Oh, it's terrifying. It's scary. It's some bullshit. Well, I thought things were going to get taken care of. Yeah, I know. And I was skeptical, and it's unfortunate that my skepticism has been proven correct. One last thing I want to say, there was an online source of information that a lot of people thought was secretly something to do with Trump, running from about 2015, 2016 through about 2021. And that by all indications that I've been able to discern just from the way they act, the things they talk about, certain dead giveaways, that the info source known as Q was run by the same set of intelligence agencies that Mr. Epstein was collecting blackmail material on behalf of. #TrustThePlan.